today we are going to continue talking about clothing, but we are talking about how to sew. So mending your clothes is a really great way to reduce waste and hold on to clothing that you really like but have worn down. It's also really helpful if you have like an issued uniform that you only have a certain amount of articles and you have to make the most of them. So small rips and tears can easily be patched up so you don't have to toss something out or have just unintentional holes on your clothing. So the first thing we'll talk about are what supplies you need for sewing. You don't need a whole giant sewing kit. You don't need a sewing machine for patching up small rips and tears. So all you need are sewing needles, thread, a seam ripper, and small scissors. So I brought my sewing kit with me to show you guys some examples of what can go in your sewing kit. So the first thing is your needles. I put various sizes because for various different types of clothing you want a different needle size. So this is my pom-pom full of needles. It's got a couple of different sizes on it. So the bigger needle you would use for a more thick fabric, whereas a small needle if you were using a very delicate fabric, because you don't want to leave a giant hole in like a nice maybe satin blouse or something like that. And then I have really big needles. These are for using yarn. So if you were mending a hole in a knit sweater or something like that, you would use a needle like this. The second item is various thread. I have four colors of thread. I have these four just because they're primary colors that I wear the most. So I will match whatever I'm fixing to the closest color that I have. So I don't need the entire rainbow, every different shade of green, blue, red. Just these four work fine for me. A seam ripper is this guy right here. You can use this to undo seams, buttons, and it's really good for getting underneath stuff to rip them. And then small sharp scissors. So these scissors I keep specifically in my sewing box. It keeps them nice and sharp because you will notice dull scissors make sewing really difficult, whether it's just cutting thread, cutting loose seams, and just cutting your fabric in general. Having a nice sharp pair of scissors just for any sewing projects makes a really big difference. So when you have your supplies and you're ready to start mending your clothing, there are three main types of stitches, and they're really all you need to know if you're fixing your clothing yourself. The first is your running stitch. That's just your line going through the clothing. The second is the whip stitch. This one is really great for fixing seams. It joins the two edges together and is pretty invisible from the outside. But the most invisible type of stitch is the ladder stitch. This one, once you pull the thread through, it is truly invisible. So I don't have a demonstration personally for you today, but I have included three great resources to go along with today's video. The first one is for repairing seams. It demonstrates all three of the basic stitches I have up on the board for you guys today, and she does a wonderful job of fixing seams in a sweatpants tear. The second video is for darning a sock. Darning a sock is actually a lot of work, And I will definitely say that I have just done a simple whip stitch to fix a hole in the sock, like up on the toe or something. So it's whatever is easiest and works for you. And then the third is just reattaching a button that's fallen off. So those are probably going to be the three most commonly encountered clothing mends that you will come across. So definitely take a look at those. And if there's something that you can't fix, maybe you have a rip in your leather jacket, you have a really nice like silk or satin, a very fine material, or maybe something very gauzy, maybe like a flouncy skirt or a fancy tuxedo or a dress, and you just don't feel like you can fix it. So definitely take it to a seamstress or tailor. They don't usually list their prices on the website because it's very case by case basis. So holes in your clothing or other fabric belongings, because this can all be applied to any like bedding, towels, pillows, things like that. It doesn't have to mean the end of its life. So with just a couple of tools and a little bit of time, no one will ever be able to tell that they've been patched up. So this can save you a lot of money in the long run, and it'll help keep pieces of your clothing in your closet longer. So that wraps up this segment on clothing care, and next week we're going to be talking about cleaning. So I will be sharing a bunch of DIY cleaning product recipes with you, so stay tuned. As always, if you have any questions or tutorials that you'd like to see, please don't hesitate to reach out to us on social media or through email.